So a lot of the Knicks' success this season has put the NBA media overall in a very compromising position, with a lot of their antics and just the way they cover the league slowly begins to get exposed. First of all, the fact that the Knicks were ranked as being the underdogs even before the Western Conference Finals had ended was very telling. The Thunder had a number of injuries, and for the San Antonio Spurs, even throughout the regular season, they struggled to close out games. This was nothing new. And not only that, the Spurs never really relied on Victor Wembanyama to close out games. It goes to show you of how today's reporting is not necessarily about what's going on the court, but what can generate the most clicks. Are we going to get into it? As later on in this segment, we're going to hear directly from a person behind the scenes who has the direct perspective of how the personality side of the business is slowly blurring the lines between TMZ and journalism. But to start it off, we might as well go to Vincent Goodwell's comment about the NBA titles being a participation trophy. See, there's two things that's going on at the same time. There is an old guard of just NBA reporting that are still stuck on the whole 90s era or whatever the era that they believe was the golden years of the NBA, because the league has always kind of shifted and changed from decade to decade in its whole existence. This is nothing new, but you mix in that scenario with also the media landscape changing and the TMZ style of reporting and just fishing for clicks. It's really a thing. And we've seen ever since the Knicks won the NBA championship, it's almost like every other media outlet is competing for who can say the dumbest shit all at the same time. But we're going to examine all these media games that are being played today because it all relates. The clipping culture, the click farming. Again, it's like all the outlets are rushing to say the most outlandish shit all at the same time. That way, no one could look stupid. And we're starting to see that trickle down even being implemented in some of these morning, highly produced television shows.
I think dynasty is better for the sport because if we're going to look at the way that the NBA experienced its golden age, those 2 decades where it went from Magic and Bird and Isaiah in between to Michael Jordan, that's where you had the greatest explosion in growth. And it's not just because those guys hoarded the championships. Now you're legislating parity. The owners are saying you aren't allowed to be great for an extended period of time because look at Oklahoma City with Durant and Westbrook and Harden. They weren't allowed to keep their 3 guys together because the money says, okay, you drafted too well. You drafted 3 MVPs. Yep. You can't hold on to them. The reason that the Knicks won this championship is because Minnesota could not afford to hold on to Karl-Anthony Towns, and he became the final piece for them.
So you're telling the viewing audience that Anthony Edwards being that first overall pick, a player that's always ranked higher than Jalen Brunson, and also the T-Wolves having the best defensive center, a top draft pick like Jaden McDaniels, Naz Reid, Alexander Walker, all those guys combined with Karl-Anthony Towns, they couldn't win a championship. They let a Knicks team take Karl-Anthony Towns to higher heights with Josh Hart, Mitchell Robinson, and Mikal Bridges. Once again, if he discredits the Knicks, he's going to have to re-examine what he really thinks of the T-Wolves. And this guy right here, Vincent Goodwell, he's always been a Knicks hater. I've gone over that in a few of my segments before. I also linked that in the description below. But he does come out of Detroit, so his Pistons loyalty runs deep.
So it's going to also cost the Knicks on the back end. But to your general question, I like to know that greatness is validated. How do we know that any of the last 8 champions are actually validated because they have not done it again? Giannis is itching to get out. Boston is thinking about trading Jalen Brown. They don't believe in their 1 championship. LeBron's 1 championship in LA was not enough. So why would it be enough for us?
Validate is the Larry O'Brien that I put on that shelf and it stays there forever. That's the validation. The Laker thing.
Oh, you mean participation trophy then?
I'm sorry, Larry O'Brien is a participation trophy?
If everybody gets one.
It is an actual trophy. You won the league that year. The 2021 I get because it's summer camp. Like it was in one little bubble, and that's why people give them crap about that one. But no, you win the title, it's validated. You're forever a champion. The difference, of course, is to me, you can have rivalries without dynasty.
And that's the beautiful thing for the NBA today, to have those rivalries without dynasties, because the viewing audience has much more options to keep them entertained. They don't have a 5-year window to have certain franchises rebuilding. Those days are long gone. And that's where Vincent Goodwill lose some of his sight of today's landscape. You're not in the 80s and 90s no more, my boy. The league has a much more global talented pool. We're seeing modern medicine and training be so good that there's quite a few second round and even undrafted guys having championship implications in the past several years. From Fred VanVleet to Jimmy Butler, Jokic, Draymond Green, and even Jalen Brunson. But again, the media landscape right now is in a very tricky situation. The money for a lot of these large entities are getting very scarce, so the clickbaiting is at an all-time high. Even the point that Vincent Goodwill had brought up about Jaylen Brown being on the trade block, which is not necessarily true. Just listen right here as Dan Le Batard and his crew discuss legitimate sources debunking the Jaylen Brown narrative and how today's on-air personalities, they gotta find some shit to say. Again, all this ties in to a lot of the clipping culture that's going on online and also the reactions by many media outlets all at the same time of the outlandish takes when it came to the Knicks winning the NBA championship. If we all say dumb shit at the same time, none of us look stupid. This is the era that we're in. You guys check it out, and every once in a while, I'll check in.
I'm like perpetually confused about some of the things happening in journalism. So when Zaslow yesterday says none of the reporters reporting on any of the Giannis stuff know anything, it seems to me, even though it feels accurate, wrong. Like morally wrong for a bunch of people in journalism to be talking about this at all times and to leave you with the impression that nobody talking about anything has any expertise or information that's real. So I want to know who you guys trust when Gary Washburn of the Boston Globe says flatly the Celtics are not shopping Jaylen Brown. This is a reporter for a newspaper. I know Greg and I, if somebody does it for a newspaper because of where our standards are, we know that stuff has to be vetted. We know that stuff has to be accurate. You know you're not allowed to make up sources. You're not allowed to make up. You can make up on radio. You can make up on television. That's not something you can do in newspapers. So for me, when a newspaper reporter says that, I tend to believe it, but I think Greg and I are in the minority on this. I don't think most people, when I say Gary Washburn of the Boston Globe says flatly, the Celtics are not shopping Jaylen Brown. And then I see all over television, here's why Jaylen Brown should be hurt. Here's why he should be insulted. Who's got it right?
I think that this is the only story right now in the NBA. Finals are over. This is the story, and it's going to carry us for the next week. And if your employer looks at you and says, what do you got? This is the big story. Do you have any rumors? Do you have any intel? Do you have any sources? You got to come up with something.
Not rumors. It's not supposed to be rumors.
I know.
When I'm talking, though, about the erosion of standards all the time around here, and I want to ask you guys this because it's a silly little thing in sports, but we are in a misinformation time. We are in a time where it's getting more and more confusing to know what's true on the internet, what's a fact, and what's not a fact.
And that played out no further than the start of the NBA Finals. The Knicks were the favorites entering into the NBA Finals. Make no mistake about it. How the Spurs lost almost all their games in the NBA Finals did not come by any surprise to anyone who truly watches the league. Matter of fact, they had a back-to-back series against the Golden State Warriors where they blew the lead or just even couldn't maintain it in the fourth quarter. They struggled to close out games all year long. But because Wemby is the new phenom, the media tried to kind of start up a hype train by saying, oh, he's the MVP. Oh, it's real close between him and SGA, when it never was. He averaged 29 minutes per game. He had a stamina issue throughout the whole regular season, and his team really never used him to close out games. So how the fuck can you be an MVP when SGA not only has a better record, but also his team is relying on him to close out games? Once again, tying this right back into the Knicks, the NBA has been around for well over 80 years. But yet, when you include the regular season and playoffs, the Knicks had the best run and just offensive efficiency out of some of the greatest teams we've ever seen. But yet they were somehow the underdogs against a young player who could even establish himself in the post, and his team didn't necessarily even use him to close out games. Amazing how that works.
I'm just curious what the audience does with. Greg and I know, because we come from newspapers, the consequences and danger of getting things wrong in a newspaper. It's not like radio. Colin Cowherd says it pays to be loud wrong. Like, it's not like television. You can get it wrong all the time. The Standard is different, but the Standard is one that no one cares about anymore. The Standard isn't dying. The Standard is dead. So when I ask you, who's got the right information on what you care about most? That's the best story in sports, the biggest story in sports. Who's got the most credible information? What do you do with the fact that Greg and I are over here on an island saying, well, I believe newspaper reporters, but when I say to this audience, Gary Washburn of the Boston Globe, they all say, no, Kendrick Perkins knows more, or Gasbag X knows more, or Nick Wright knows more, or nobody listening to this, I think, says Gary Washburn of the Boston Globe is more credible than all of these people who have bigger, better platforms with more reach. And in the erosion of that standard, truth gets lost. Like, it just evaporates.
Now, that Gary Washburn guy may be credible, but he's going to need a clipping team or just has to have some sort of show, because in this current ecosystem, being right in front of the audience where they are is the name of the game.
Is it as simple as Gary Washburn doesn't have to fill up time? The guys on television, your show's happening no matter what. From this time to this time, every day, Monday through Friday, this show is happening, whether you have information or not, so you better have some information.
You can't go to print with what a source says if you haven't verified it and think it's a lie. No, the standard that you're talking about right now, you're lowering it to where I'm saying the standard has been all of my life on reporter, not columnist, not opinion person.
Right.
And this is a distinction I don't think most people make. I don't think that the grand majority of people listening to this make any sort of distinction between the person who's in a newspaper who's giving you facts and the person who's on television giving you opinion.
Well, you can't blame the audience for that, because at the end of the day, most of us weren't even old enough to be around to buy newspapers because we had the options on our phones. And second of all, he confirms the reporting with Jalen Brown, the fact that it was in that Boston newspaper about him not being up for trade is actually verified. So once again, Vincent Goodwill repeating that on air, it goes to show you most of these motherfuckers are out the loop and they're just chasing clicks.
I think most diehard sports fans know that difference. I think the casual sports fan 100% thinks what Nick Wright is saying is just as informed as reporters. But I do think the diehard sports fan can tell the difference between a guy giving opinions on TV and a guy who's breaking news.
I don't think so. Not nowadays. That shit is so in your face because of the clipping culture. Subconsciously, a lot of the lines are getting blurred. Again, as soon as that Monday hit after the Knicks won the championship, it was like a flood of clips, no matter what the network was, of just people saying stupid shit all at the same time. That's one of the reasons why Vincent Goodwill's statement about the NBA title being a participation trophy, it really didn't receive the backlash as it should, because we've been desensitized of just all the dumb shit being said out there. He himself is not going to face any repercussions. He'll be right back on that show the next Monday morning or anytime they need a stupid take.
You think if I ask this audience right now that the polling's going to go well for Gary Washburn of the Boston Globe if I put him against any
over
of the...
Kendrick Perkins, who do you trust more to break news in the NBA?
No. Who's more credible? Not break news. Who's more credible? Their information is correct. When you start skewing the lines between facts and opinions and you give the bigger platforms and the bigger rewards to the people who are giving opinions, facts get lost. They get drowned. When you're giving all the money to the people who have to fill the time with rumors, with I've got to have a hot take, like what gets lost in that avalanche is there's just no way, none, that this audience thinks Gary Washburn of the Boston Globe is more credible than Chris Broussard, than Nick Wright, than Kendrick Perkins.
Bam, out of the bayou.
And you think so, really?
I believe that. You guys think I'm wrong?
I think I think you're wrong to an extent. Maybe you're underestimating the audience a little bit there. Like maybe the super casual, like really uninformed fan says, "Hey, that guy's on television. He must know the most."
And that's most of the audience. Matter of fact, that's most of the audience for any sports league. It's the casual. That's what makes it so big. The diehards tend to be the ones that are truly frustrated with a bullshit narrative going around. Again, a prime example of that is the Knicks being the underdogs heading into the finals.
The fact that we don't know what facts are anymore, that part is skewed. The idea, and I know, Greg, that you and I are going to be biased about this, and I'm not going to lament it anymore after this inside of this segment, but the fact that the person watching this, that Zaslow's saying to me, Dan, you're underestimating the audience here. What I'm doing is actually talking about people I've talked to over 30 years who don't care about newspapers the way I do. And I'm always sort of marveling that they don't make a distinction between what the columnist does and what the beat reporter does, that nobody cares about journalists as much as journalists do. Nobody thinks about this stuff very much at all.
And you can't fault the audience for that. Most of us don't give a fuck about that because the technology has made it very convenient to consume a lot of these things without even a second thought.
So when I tell you, Kendrick Perkins, if he tells you Jalen Brown is going to be traded, and if Gary Washburn tells you or writes Jalen Brown is going to be traded, I believe that we've gotten to the point now, it's taken a long time, that more of the fans believe Kendrick Perkins just because he's got the louder microphone, the louder megaphone than of the Boston Globe. That means something to me and Greg. That makes Roy make dinosaur sounds when we talk about poor Gary Washburn of the Boston Globe. And
yeah, poor Gary's going to need to be on camera or just provide some sort of media content where him and the Boston Globe can have a bunch of clippers on payroll. We are in that era where the narrative is much bigger than the truth. And again, this all ties in with the Knicks winning the NBA title in the fashion that they did. They're on par with some of the best playoff teams we've ever seen. The 2001 Lakers, the 2017 Warriors with Kevin Durant. And this has caused a lot of these outlets to start scrambling because when they put together these make-believe lists, the narrative starts to not match what actually happened. Check out Colin Cowherd and Nick Wright debate some of the top 10 players heading into next season. Shit gets very tricky when making these lists.
You keep talking about Jalen Brunson as if you have a question, can you win big with him, when he just scored 45 on the greatest defensive player you've ever seen to win the finals in 5 games? Who cares that he's short? Messi's pretty short too. I wonder if Argentina could ever win a World Cup with him. We saw it happen. There is no chance, none, that Cooper Flagg next year is better than Jalen Brunson. Right now, this moment, Victor Wembanyama is not better than Jalen Brunson. The wearing down thing with Victor is a huge concern. You don't have to worry about that with Brunson. Cade Cunningham ahead of Jalen Brunson is like an extra slap in the face. Why? Well, in what context?
Yeah, this list is fucking horrible. First of all, Cade Cunningham lost to Donovan Mitchell when Jalen Brunson and the Knicks completely slapped him out of the woodworks. And it was so bad that Cleveland, they're reconsidering even extending James Harden. Once again, it's the fashion of how the Knicks end up dusting a lot of these teams in the playoffs. The Philadelphia 76ers parted ways with Daryl Morey, and the Joel Embiid days of just being the star of that franchise, the 1A player, it's over.
Well, because soccer isn't a big man sport. Basketball is overwhelmingly, even now, it's not a center league, but it's a 3-and-D league. It is a length sport. It is a wing league. He is a remarkable player, but it's just like the last 8 champions. There are no great teams. There are spectacular in the moment lightning in a bottle teams, which the Knicks were.
Once again, they got to justify it. Lightning in a bottle. But that same lightning end up breaking playoff and regular season records in a league that has been around for well over 80 years.
But we were asking questions last year about Brunson in Indiana being like, ugh, Cat and Brunson can't play together.
Yeah, and then they just went 15-1.
Yes.
And shattered the point differential for the playoffs. And you're saying last year we were asking questions about Jalen Brunson. Right now I'm asking questions about Cade Cunningham. Today.
Well, he doesn't have a second scorer, whereas Cat can score and OG can score and Bridges can score. And, I mean, the Knicks roster.
Yo, the fucking goalpost gets moved like a motherfucker, but yet, didn't he just say the Knicks were lightning in a bottle, but now all of a sudden they have a good team? Get the fuck out of here.
Now the Knicks are some great team. This guy averaged 32.5 for the finals. He had 36-7 to quarterback a 29-point second-half comeback. He then had the list of guys with 45-plus in a closeout game. Giannis, the best game of his career. Bullet Bob Pettit, who's too old even for you to have watched. And Michael Jordan's absolute greatest performance of his career, his final game in Chicago, and Brunson on Saturday night.
That right there is a very exclusive list. Once again, the NBA has been around for well over 80 years, and those are the only players. But watch the disrespect Brunson as well as the Knicks continuously get right here.
We don't need the hypotheticals anymore. It doesn't have to fit. It's in a similar way, different draft profile, but they both won in college. It's Isaiah Thomas. It's like, well, was Isaiah Thomas ever better than Larry Bird or better than Magic Johnson or better than Michael Jordan? I don't know, but I do know en route to a championship, he beat them all, and I do know that he outplayed them in playoff series.
How about this? We thought Jalen Hurts was good, and then for about a year and a half, he's great. And now we're back to he's kind of dependent on his coordinator. Jalen Brunson, we always thought was good. His dad acknowledges, I didn't think he'd be that good. Then he's great in a playoff run. If I told you he ended up being very good for the rest of his career, there are these magical moments with players.
Yeah,
Jalen Hurts had a magical.
This will probably be the peak. Yes. I agree with that. But since he's been with the Knicks, Jalen Brunson, in the last 4 years, who leads the entire NBA in playoff wins? Jalen Brunson. Second in the entire NBA in playoff points per game? Jalen Brunson. First in 30 and 40-point playoff games, Jalen Brunson. This is a team that before he got there had won one playoff series in 15 years. They immediately won a playoff series in each of his first 2 years. Before he got there, hadn't made a conference finals in 25 years. They made it in year 3. Hadn't been to an NBA finals in 27 years. They made it in year 4.
And also, let me say this. We also got to factor in who Jalen Brunson is beating in these series. At the time, the reigning MVP in Joel Embiid, he knocked them out with an injured-riddled Knicks roster. In that very same series, they lost Mitchell Robinson and Bojan. He's also defeated Donovan Mitchell multiple times and Jason Tatum as well as Jaylen Brown.
Hadn't won a championship in 53 years. They just did it against and nobody believed in it. I shouldn't say nobody. Very few people during the playoffs thought that the winner of the East would have any shot against whoever came out of the West. And it's not only that they won. Other than OG, none of his teammates played great. They won because he walked the Spurs down every time. Like, at some point, body type and draft profile have to matter less than what the guy actually just did.
Facts. And why the fuck the 7-footer, the prodigy, could not walk the Knicks down the same way in the fourth quarter? That's a question the media has not yet responded to.
And I just vehemently disagree with you. That's the short version. I vehemently disagree.
Okay, I think we've seen the apex. We've seen the top, and I think all of us tend
We've
to.
seen the top. You haven't think we've seen the top of Giannis? Giannis's top was 5 years ago. Scored 50 in the finals. You've got him ahead of Brunson. Cooper Flagg is an idea. You've got Anthony Edwards, who I love. And why is Anthony Edwards better than Jalen Brunson right now? Why?
I think you can put him on anybody, two-way player. He's still ascending. He's a much better athlete. He's a stronger player.
He's had much better complete teams, but yet every time he's got up to the real stiff competition, the Western Conference Finals back in 2024 against Luka, he got dusted. Same thing when he ran into SGA, got dusted. So Ant-Man has definitely hit a wall, I should say, when it comes to leading his team at the highest levels. Once again, winning a championship is always going to be a team concept. The individual scorer, his individual game kind of stunts his teammates at times. Ant-Man is going to have to reassess his individual game at that level and find a way to get his teammates more involved.
I think if you ask GMs, they would take Ant over Brunson. I would take him over.
Oh, I think if you ask GMs, I think that is correct. I think that there's Ant's probably the person on your list I have the least issue with, but I just don't. There is to me, and you said it off the top. You were like, I've called Jalen Brunson Russell Wilson. Colin, go back and watch how Colin Cowherd talked about Russell Wilson. You loved the guy. You didn't care about draft position or size or anything. You're like, the guy wins, the guy performs. You adored Russell Wilson. Yeah. I don't know.
It's amazing how the goalpost continues to move when discussing the Knicks. And I've always alluded to in my previous segments, my fellow Knicks fans, the media will not give you credit when your team is successful. We've seen some of the most outlandish statements, even by the Cavaliers coach, trying to make sense of why the Knicks kept blowing them out. Our guy, Josh Hart, had the perfect response to that bullshit statement.
I just try to go out there and just play my game. I'm never a huge analytics guy. At a certain point, they're a lamppost to a drunk person. You can lean on them, but it won't get you home. So at a certain point, you got to have a good feel for the game.
We're slowly seeing this Knicks playoff run have implications on some of the philosophies we've seen in the NBA in the past couple of years. The kind of shot selections from teams, the positionless basketball. Can every star actually lead a team within that style? Anthony Edwards, Cade Cunningham, Paolo Banchero. The APB is out on a number of players when it comes to this going deeper into the playoffs. And interesting enough, Max Kellerman and Rich Paul had a discussion about not only Josh Hart's statements about the analytics, but also who would they rather take, Luka or Jalen Brunson? Those guys have two different play styles, and when it comes to building a championship team around both, things get quite interesting.
Josh Hart.
Why would Kenny Atkinson say
Josh Hart
Why would
had
he
the
say
best,
that?
But Josh Hart had the best explanation of analytics that I've ever heard since I ever heard the word analytics. Did you hear what he said?
Yes.
He basically said analytics is like lampposts for a drunk person. They'll help you, but they won't get you home.
Right.
They'll hold you up, but they won't get you home. And he's right.
They can light the way.
Because here's the thing about analytics. We talked about it. The reason why I don't like analytics, when Tyrese Maxey was coming out, I hate to tell you this, I begged the Pelicans, guys, Pelicans was one of the first teams I allowed in the gym to see Tyrese Maxey. I'm telling them, look, they had the 13th pick. Oh, man. But he don't really shoot the three that well. I said, what tape are you watching? Because what type of threes is he shooting? Is it a grenade at the bottom of his feet?
Right.
Like, is Cal screaming and yelling? Did he just take him out the game and don't put him in the game for 4 minutes, then put him back in? What type of threes you talking about? I just saw this guy make 25 threes in a row. You see the same thing I saw.
Every fan knows the type of three that a guy's, like a shot where the guy's supposed to hit that shot. He got the ball on his steps in rhythm. And the type of shot where you're like, I didn't think that.
Right. Analytics does not tell what type of heart you have in key moments of the game to make a wide open shot. You think analytics said,
it's a tool. I agree. This is why James Harden was the darling of the analytics community. Luka Doncic is now. I don't think that style of play that Harden played and that Luka plays is conducive to winning championships.
By the way, you played against some of the best guards the league has ever seen. Ever seen. Where does Jalen Brunson and Shea rank against?
Hold on. We'll get to that right now. Let's do it.
Yes, let's do it.
Mean, the thing is, it's different because the guys that we are talking about, we're talking about the MJs, the Kobes, you know what I mean? The AIs.
AI, yes. First of all, people, they always go to the top with these names.
No, forget about guards. Short guards.
Let's take
small
guards.
Let's say under 6'2".
6'2".
6'2" is already decent.
Tony Parker.
That's a good one.
Great.
Right?
That's a good
we
one.
played him. Chris Paul.
That's another great one.
Another good one.
You know what I mean? Like
Allen
I'm sitting
Iverson.
There, okay, that's what I said. AI.
Isaiah Thomas.
Terrell Brandon.
I want to start with the Knicks. I want to go back to the Knicks. We'll get to the guards in a second.
Okay, fine.
Should the Knicks be favorites no matter who comes out of the West? Because I'll give you my answer to that question.
The way they're playing, yes.
Yes.
Amen. The real question is why the media automatically assumes no matter who wins in the West, they're the favorites. Once again, the results of the finals, the Knicks being able to win 4-1, it really showed how disconnected the reporting is versus what's actually happening on the court. And the Jaylen Brown rumors of him just being on that trade block is another prime example.
Where they're
Knicks
playing, yes.
should be favored to win the championship
That's
right
fair.
now. And let me tell you why.
That's fair.
Here's the graphic. Highest point differential in the history of the playoffs through the first 13 games. I'm going to start reverse order, okay? The 6th highest differential, Oklahoma City in 2025. That's last year. They won the championship, plus 183. The 5th was the 1971 Bucks. That's Kareem Abdul-Jabbar with Oscar Robertson. They won the championship, plus 192. The 4th, the Kevin Durant Warriors team in 17. They won the finals, obviously, plus 225. Sorry. Anyway, I skipped 2 teams. The Bulls, plus 184. Michael Jordan won the finals. And the Lakers, 87. That's Kareem, Magic, and Worthy, plus 193. Anyway, by far, the biggest point differential is plus 234 for the Knicks this year. Every other team in the top 6 won the championship that year. And even if you might be thinking, well, that game against Atlanta, they won by 1 million points. They'd still, even if you took that game out, they'd still be top 6.
It's the Knicks.
Sheesh. Preach, Max, preach. Once again, them being ranked underdogs, it shows you the fucking disconnect. I can understand Vegas doing it because that was a trap bet. But the fact that this was repeated over and over with OKC even having all those injuries and Wemby not necessarily being the polished closer that for the most part has been displayed throughout the regular season, it's very telling.
It's the Knicks versus anybody. That's their mindset. We don't care who comes out. I said yes.
Yes, and you're a yes.
Yes.
They should be because of how they're playing.
Because of how they're playing.
If Woodward said if they go 7 games here, 7 games with the Hawks, and it's a bloodbath between him and Philadelphia, between them and Philly, and then now you get to this series with Cleveland, and they're just going back and forth, like maybe not. But the fact that it's not winning, it's how they're winning.
It's how you're winning.
It's how you win. It's not losing, it's how you lose.
They're playing the best team basketball right now. Karl-Anthony Towns is passing out of the post like he's baby Jokic, right? Like he's like
I tell you what people don't understand about the whole Karl-Anthony Towns thing. People forget that Mike Brown was in Golden State for the longest time. They got a dude in Golden State named Draymond Green that they use as a hub. Right? They have a guy in Golden State named Steph Curry that they did a great job of putting him off the ball and allowing him to move.
It's a great point.
Mm-hmm. And when you get to Sacramento, he's the head coach of Sacramento with De'Aaron Fox and Sabonis. So now it's like, okay, this is my offensive scheme. What he's done is He's moved that offensive scheme from Golden State, obviously different personnel, to Sacramento, and now he's implemented it late, and we have watched that Knicks offense evolve.
Facts. And also, let me say this about him moving that offense to Sacramento. The Kings that season were ranked the #1 offense, and we've never seen that from them since. It goes to show you Mike Brown's scheme could work with different kinds of players, especially Sabonis being a passing big. Then he went to Karl-Anthony Towns, who we really haven't seen him in that role. And now that we could play Monday morning quarterback, it worked well with him. And additionally, mixing in OG Anunoby within that whole frame, those back cut screens that Jalen Brunson was setting and OG would get those dunks, it came off of all that.
Is it time to get Mike Brown as a coach? I got to say something about that too, because think of I know Kerr won a bunch of championships, but Mark Jackson comes in there and he gets them to believe it's okay to shoot from that distance. Yes. It's okay. And he creates the foundation for what becomes a dynasty, but he didn't appear to be the coach to get him to the next level because when they brought Kerr in, the offense was much more efficient.
Right.
Okay.
That happens.
Isn't Mike Brown kind of Steve Kerr for this team right now, in the sense that Thibodeau came in and got them to be a respected powerhouse in the East. But as is typical with his teams, and I don't want to hear, well, Brunson is playing the same minutes. There's a certain amount of intensity that Tibbs puts in the regular season.
Well, also, he's taking the ball out of his hands.
And in the regular season, the Knicks were really good. They would hit a wall in the second round of the playoffs, right? Mike Brown comes in, and instead of trending the wrong way this time of year, they're the hottest team in basketball.
The best thing
doesn't he deserve some credit for that?
He does. No, he does. He deserves a lot of credit. But Mike Brown is one of the most detailed people you are going to find, especially on the defensive end. He don't care. You can take a shot, you can miss a shot, but what you cannot do is miss an assignment on the defensive end. Because when you see Mike Brown prepare, I was there at his dinner when he first got the job in Cleveland. Been around him a long time.
He suffers because he worked on that. Because anyone with LeBron back then, it's like, oh, that's because of LeBron.
No.
I'm just saying, Mike Brown's reputation, based on what I'm seeing right now, is not.
No, Mike Brown's.
He's a good coach, but he is not getting enough credit for what's happening with the Knicks right now.
Sacramento hadn't been to the playoffs since.
Mike Brown's reputation is not an elite coach. It's a good coach, but maybe that needs to change.
But what also people don't understand about Mike Brown is he was here.
Right.
He was my PD coach.
Here.
He was my player development coach here in San Antonio.
Is he underrated right now?
He's very underrated.
Yeah, but I mean, the thing is, this is a results-based league.
Yes.
Everything is based on the moment, right? Everything is based because I tell you what, if you go back to 2 months ago, you wouldn't call him underrated at that time.
They were struggling.
Right. You'll call him underrated now because of all the stats that.
Yes,
right.
but
unlike a Thibodeau team, who they'd be playing all these minutes and then they'd be burnt by.
No, that's a false narrative, Max. Come on. For the most part, Brunson and most of the starters were only averaging around the high 30s, like 33 minutes a game. You know, I'll tell you what, that Derrick Rose injury, it really kind of put a stain on Tibbs. God damn, people are still hanging on to that narrative, even though most of his players actually like playing for him.
Burnt by the playoffs.
He made a major adjustment. Play faster.
Right.
Get Brunson, get the ball out of Brunson's hands.
Right.
Playing through Cat.
Right.
People don't see it, but he gets Cat going very early. Another genius thing he did. Oh, you want to foul Mitchell Robinson? Great. Foul him now. We're going to put you in the bonus early.
That's so smart.
And then we're going to grind.
That's so in other words, Atkinson's thinking we're going to put Mitch on the line. And so
go ahead.
Mike Brown
he did this in game 3.
Right, here's the bait.
Go right ahead.
And they got the little net there and he took the food.
But here's why the Knicks mentally should be so
Star Wars reference.
Should be so confident. Twice in the playoffs, they came back from 27 down against the Hawks, right? To win that game. Remember? Wasn't that in Atlanta when they came back and they beat the Hawks? The Hawks was up. Was the Hawks up?
Was it 26?
I think they was up 27.
Yeah.
And then to come back from 22.
to come down not only 22.
We've seen that happen with teams where they feel like no lead matters. Your lead doesn't matter.
This is what is the most gangster thing about that game. They're down 22 with 7.5 minutes left. They wound up winning in overtime by 11.
Yes.
That's a 33-point swing.
Once you got into overtime.
Yeah,
But I'm saying
overtime,
that's like 12
12
minutes of game time. A 33-point swing.
But you're so deflated. You gotta have such a resilient mindset to burst through that.
All these dynasties have a captain who's an extension of the coach on the floor. Bill Russell or Derek Jeter or Tom Brady or whoever it is, right? Jalen Brunson is the floor general for the Knicks. The number one reason they feel, I think, like no deficit is insurmountable for them is because they believe in their guy. I want to talk about Jalen Brunson for a second. If the Knicks win, and we believe they should be favored, and they win the whole thing, is he the GOAT Knick? Is he the GOAT Knick? I mean, Walt Frazier. Okay, let me rephrase. Well, no. First, is he the GOAT Knick? Because
no, Max, he can't be the GOAT Knick yet. He hasn't been part of the team long enough, but he definitely will be up there. It's still a little bit too early to say.
Then we could talk about modern NBA, like 79, 80 on. Walt Frazier has 2 chips. Is it still Walt because he's got 2? Or because Brunson will pass Patrick Ewing if he gets
rings
one.
don't matter in this culture, so.
Yeah, I don't know what the fuck Rich Paul is talking about. That must be some LeBron James shit. I don't know what he's talking about.
Don't matter. Rings don't matter. So I would say yes.
Rings don't matter in what culture?
People don't count the rings.
What?
You don't.
What, Knicks fans? Because there aren't that many
No,
of them?
I'm just saying. Like, Bill Russell.
No, LeBron James fans, because there's not that many either. Remember what he said in Miami? Not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5, not 6. He kept going. And if it wasn't for the bubble, they would only have 3.
Has 11 rings.
Right.
No one considers him the GOAT.
They did for a while.
They don't do it right now. No one has 11 rings.
Yeah, but the league was much smaller.
Right. So what I'm saying is the league was much, much different
That's
when
true.
Clyde
So
played.
so in the modern era, at least, right? Maybe Brunson gets extra credit and is immediately the GOAT Knick if they win the championship. Is he?
I would never disrespect Clyde Frazier.
I know that's.
I would never do that.
We need to do? We need to ask Clyde. We should ask Clyde.
Yeah, we could. Here's what I'm saying.
We'll leave it up to Clyde.
That's what I was going to say. Let's put that
leave it up to Clyde.
I'm going to act like Clyde.
By the way, Clyde.
Now, when it comes to the Knicks, due to recent history of just them being considered a losing franchise, there's always been a mix-up because even though in recent years that has been the case, when it comes to the championship level, the standard is very high for the Knicks organization. Walt Clyde did beat the very best of the best in the league. That includes Jerry West, Wilt Chamberlain, Baylor, and Gail Goodrich. So those are all-time players that the Knicks end up beating.
Went for, I want to say, 35, 15, and 7 in Game 7 against Jerry West and Wilt Chamberlain to give the Knicks the championship. So
I'm going to put Clyde to the side.
Okay, let's put Clyde to the side. He passes Patrick, right? If they win, because Patrick didn't get one.
Absolutely.
Okay, how
he
about
is at the top of the list.
First of all, that's not for Rich Paul to decide. He cannot speak on that as a Midwest guy. No, thank you. Patrick Ewing is one of the best centers to ever play in the NBA, and he has lost to 2 players that are definitely in the top 10. That is Hakeem Olajuwon and Michael Jordan. I know sometimes the whole NBA zeitgeist gets caught up in the counting of rings, but when it comes to the quote-unquote ring culture, not all of them are the same. You could look at LeBron James' championship in Cleveland, Kobe Bryant's championship against the Boston Celtics, Dirk Nowitzki's championship against the Miami Heat. Some rings hold weight more than others. And the same thing does apply on the other end when you look at the competition levels of certain players. And Patrick Ewing, no doubt, has gone up against 2 GOATs, 2 guaranteed top 10 guys.
Would you rather have Brunson right now or Shea?
Ooh.
Brunson or Shea? Now, Shea is bigger.
Okay,
he's a better
I know my
defender.
answer.
But he's a better defender.
I know my answer.
They're both extremely clutch.
Mm-hmm.
True. Shea is a better defender, but Brunson also has that pull-up 3 coming off the pick. Shea cannot do that, so that tends to open up Brunson's game. Interesting conversation right here because it is a lot closer than what people think. especially when it comes to winning.
I know my answer.
This is not like a it's not a would you rather have. This is
He's making it a would you rather have.
saying,
Yeah.
It's not a would you rather have, but he is making it a would you rather have.
How about this?
Okay.
Take who you want.
Brunson.
Okay, I'll take the other.
In today's NBA, so what you're telling me is I don't know anything else. I don't know who else is on my roster.
Okay.
Okay? I have to take the taller, more versatile of the two.
Okay, so that's Shea, who's
Yes.
also, by the way, Shea's a good defender.
Right.
That's like one of the most underrated parts of his game. He's
No
an
question
excellent-
about it.
How about for this Knicks team?
Well,
Could you swap Brunson out? Who in the NBA could you swap Brunson out for and think the Knicks are still as good as they are right now?
Shea.
One, who's an MVP.
Are you saying
reigning
guards?
No,
You said just guards?
Well, would you take? Okay, how about this? Brunson or Luka?
Now, before Rich Paul answers this, one thing they overlooked about Brunson, he does have an off-ball game. That's what really allowed the offense to reach up to another level when things ran through Cat. Brunson was still able to cook. I don't know if SGA or Luka could even do that. Those are more on-ball players.
You're trying to win a championship, Brunson or Luka?
okay, I can tell you who mine is.
Go ahead.
And I'll tell you the reason why.
Go ahead.
I would say Brunson. And the reason I would say that is because I've seen Brunson play with and without the ball.
I agree.
I haven't seen Luka as talented as Luka is. And Luka is crazy talented. He can score from anywhere on the floor, excellent passer, but I haven't seen him play where his usage is low.
Hey, Antonio Daniels is getting right where I was getting at. Imagine if Luka was on the Knicks in that Hawks game 4, where things started to get ran through Cat. Could Luka function in that environment the same way Jalen Brunson did? A lot of stars cannot do that. Again, that's what's beautiful about the NBA game. There's a lot of art and nuance mixed in there. It's not just about the numbers and counting the championship rings.
You know what I mean? The good thing about Jalen Brunson that we're seeing now is he's off the ball a lot, right? You're using Karl, and the thing is, I don't blame Luka for that though. Like, I wonder what it would look like if Luka was playing with LeBron when LeBron was younger.
Or Kyrie Irving
Well,
right now.
I can tell you how it would look.
Or Jalen Brunson right now. Come
I was gonna say,
on.
Brunson,
So this is
Brunson played with both. We've seen Luka play with another guard. I would say Brunson. If you're picking Brunson, it's because of the optionality that he gives.
For sure,
if
100%.
you're picking Brunson.
so
Yes.
okay. So here are some more. How many players? Well, first of all, how does Dallas let a guy like Brunson out the door?
Well, that's
that's
not
a whole
fair.
other conversation.
That's not
How
fair.
they let him out the door?
That's not fair.
Why not?
Yo, this guy Max is a shit starter right here. You gotta love it, man. Like he's getting into it. He's forcing some tough conversations out there.
Because hindsight's always 20/20.
Yeah.
You can't tell me. And I watched Jalen Brunson a million times in Dallas. That's like saying with James Harden, did you see the MVP James Harden when he was in Oklahoma City?
No.
No.
But I thought he was a
Because
good
You saw
player.
a damn
no
good player.
question.
I'll tell you. Wait.
You did.
But you know what's interesting? And I'll link it in the description below because my first film segment on Jalen Brunson showed that Utah Jazz and Dallas Mavericks series where the first 3 games happened without Luka even being in the starting lineup, and Brunson had him up 2-1 versus Donovan Mitchell. Mark Cuban had a slight glance of what Jalen Brunson could be, but he still overlooked it. Or you know what? At the time, it might have been too late because he already kind of been through contract extension talks with Brunson, and those talks already broke down. Remember when Leon Rose and Julius Randle, Worldwide West showed up to one of the games? That kind of rubbed certain people the wrong way.
But there's a difference between a really good player and an MVP.
But
I
here's
tell
what
you-
I'll say. Here's
Yeah.
what I'll say to that. Because now I got to put my agent hat on. Or I put my GM hat on. The only thing I would say against what you guys are saying now is it don't matter. It's the asset. The man was asking for 4 years.
Oh, no, I get that. I get that. You're 100%
that's what I'm
right.
saying. You signed the 4 years, 80.
For sure.
Because the other thing, you can't lose them for nothing. So it don't even matter.
But I also think there's guys like I'll give you.
That's
an example.
different. I thought we were just talking about. I thought we were just
No, but
talking
let me
about
get-
the physical.
No,
not
he's
the.
saying how
Oh,
did he
okay.
get
Yeah,
away from
how
that?
they let him out the door.
Oh,
But here-
that's
here-
different.
Here's
That's
another
different.
example. It's
Yes.
actually a pretty close
That's
comparison.
And James Harden is an example of why you don't. The same thing happened with James
Well, they traded
Harden.
Harden.
No, not at first. It became a trade.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Yes.
yeah.
Remember, Harden wanted $4 million more than
And
what was
OKC
offered.
didn't want to pay tax, I think, right?
And then that's when they came.
But I want to give an example for Brunson that I think is a close parallel, actually. When Steve Nash was with Dirk Nowitzki in Dallas, I remember saying on Around the Horn, when he was on Dallas still, I came out and said, I watched him one game, and I said, I know there are better players than Steve Nash in the NBA. But when I watch him, it's hard for me to think of who they are, right? And this is when he's still in Dallas. They hadn't unlocked him to this
He
thing.
hasn't won the MVP
But you
yet.
could see certain guys. Now, Brunson's undersized. I understand why you don't want to pay him, because in the NBA nowadays, especially, an undersized guard is a defensive liability. He can be exploited, the whole thing. But he's the kind of guy, like, now watching him on the Knicks more closely, if you have a guy like that on your team, doesn't matter the numbers he's putting up. A guy like that, and he's putting up numbers, you don't let him out the door.
Agreed. But what helps him with the Knicks is the fact that you have Josh Hart, that you have OG Anunoby, that you have Mikal Bridges.
Yeah.
You know, those guys that you have that they call wing stop.
Yeah.
You have versatile guys that are excellent defenders. The fact that you have a Mitchell Robinson. You know what I mean? Like, again, it's these conversations are difficult to have because you don't know what the rest of the roster looks like.
Facts. And that's the beautiful thing about today's NBA. There's a lot of versatility. There's more factors, I should say, outside of the star that has contributed to, I would say, the last 7 championship teams. They all kind of have the same makeup, where there's a lot of versatile players who could defend multiple positions and do a lot of different things. Long gone are the days of just having teams with a big man and back to the basket and working your offense from the inside out.
That's fair, but you did know that you were just in the conference finals.
Oh, yeah.
That's what you knew.
And they did get to the finals without him, as people, you know. But
yeah, but
the Dallas Mavericks, after
an
they let him
asset
go.
like that.
Yeah.
Agreed.
You have to.
So
sign
here's
it.
the next one I have for you guys, okay? And then I got 2 more on Brunson. How many players in the NBA? You have a team. You don't like your start. Would you take over Brunson? How many players
Right now?
in the NBA would you take
Not
over
many.
Brunson?
Not right
Because
now.
by the way, you know how I always say, why do we give out awards after the regular season, right?
Because I've said this forever.
Right,
Max,
right.
I have said this
because,
forever.
Because in a league where
The most
two-thirds
important
of the teams are still playing after the season's over. If you're one of the best players in the league, you're not going to be out of the play-in at least, right? The highest leverage games, and there are many of them, are in the playoffs.
Don't matter.
If you ask me, but in the regular season, who's better? Cade Cunningham, who I love. Cade Cunningham is an old school. He's going to, if he stays healthy, he's in the Hall of Fame one day. I love Cade Cunningham. Regular season, Cade or Brunson? Ooh, that's close. I'll probably take Cade. Playoffs, which is the real season, Brunson. I'll take Brunson over Cade.
And this is
which
tough.
just means I'll take Brunson over Cade.
And I get it, but this is a tough conversation again because roster construction matters.
It does.
Okay,
Roster
you don't
construction
have
matters.
anything else.
They don't have roster.
You don't have
construction
anything else.
in the barbershop.
Yeah,
No question. But like when we talk about Cade or Brunson, it's not as simple as saying Cade or Brunson because you know what Brunson has? Brunson has a lot of what Cade doesn't.
Okay, we're going to do an
whole lot of what
expansion
Cade
draft.
doesn't.
We have an expansion draft. And you know how they do the expansion draft? You got to leave players unprotected. Both these guys, for whatever reason, are left unprotected. You're an expansion team. Cade or Brunson?
I'm taking Cade.
I'm
Because
taking
he's younger?
Cade too.
Because he's younger and he's
taller.
bigger.
Yeah, I'm taking
He's
Cade
younger
too.
and he's bigger.
Let me say this, because those selections aren't bad for the scenario. But Cade Cunningham, just like Paolo Banchero and Anthony Edwards, he's yet to be proven if he can actually play that positionless basketball because he is really not a point guard. And in today's NBA, because that is the trend of just having those kind of combo players being utilized as the playmaker, the APB is still out on a lot of guys if they can actually do this at the highest levels. I'm talking about take full control of these games the way Brunson did against the San Antonio Spurs. That includes controlling the pace and also getting to your spots, controlling that area no matter what the other team's defense gives you. there's going to be a lot of victims of this whole positionless basketball era. So far, one guy I can name is going to be Donovan Mitchell. For Anthony Edwards, Paolo Banchero, and Cade Cunningham, it's still too early in their careers to find out. Jason Tatum almost fell victim. It took him a couple of years to kind of get that winning formula deep into the playoffs. Same thing for SGA. He's just like Jalen Brunson, one of the few players to actually thrive because of their mid-range game in this whole positionless era.
I got to say, guys, based on what I'm seeing from Brunson, in terms of the shooting, the clutch ability, everything about.
But this, we ain't seeing nothing different from Brunson this year than we saw last year.
Let's say what I mean.
It's great.
Because you agreed with the postseason thing. I said for several years in a row, going back 3 or 4 years, when it comes to the playoffs, Jimmy Butler's a top 5 player in the NBA.
100%.
That's the same thing as saying, but you don't need to say when it comes to the playoffs. That means that Jimmy Butler's a top 5 player in the NBA. No.
Hey, like I said, Max is a shit starter because he's bringing up a lot of good points. The fact that Jimmy Butler was able to make the finals in 2020 and also in 2023 in an era where most of these so-called NBA experts are telling you that the mid-range is dead. You saw not only he made the finals, but also Jokic, who uses the mid-range, Giannis, Kawhi Leonard, SGA, and now Jalen Brunson. All mid-range guys winning in the NBA Finals during an era so-called NBA experts are telling you that the mid-range is dead. Make sense of that.
We're talking
yes, it
about,
does.
What we're talking about is what gets teams in trouble, because the obvious answer is K when you ask this question, based upon everything you look for in a basketball player. But the obvious isn't always the right answer. It don't make it right.
That's true.
But it's the obvious answer. But it does not make it right.
Who would you take?
No, we both said Cade.
Right.
Because that's
Only
the
reason I
obvious
would take
answer.
Cade is younger. So the younger, taller player, I agree. So when I say expansion draft, let's just say we're trying to do as well in the playoffs as we can this year.
For
sure. You want Brunson or Cade?
But you said expansion draft, which means because
I messed up. Forget the expansion draft. It ruins
everything. I agree
everything.
with AD. What he's saying is, if you telling me that I get to take Brunson and then I get to build my team how I want it, then give me Brunson.
Then give me Brunson.
Okay.
Yes.
So you get to build the team how you want it. Whatever answer gets me the answer I'm looking for.
Then give me Brunson.
All right, Brunson. Okay. Case. So who else would you take over Brunson? If that's the idea, how many players in the league you taking over Brunson?
And that's the real question right there. How many players could you actually take over Brunson? It's not that many. Again, the Knicks winning the championship has forced a lot of uncomfortable conversations because the marketing around the league and just what they talk about, what are they fishing for clicks, it doesn't add up to what we saw on the court. The fact that the Knicks dusted most of the teams in the playoffs, including the San Antonio Spurs. These are interesting times, and it shows you the elevation of Jalen Brunson's game.